Hey there, fellas. Now, you might recognize this engine right here. We fitted it with a transparent oil pan window. We overfilled the motor oil and observed to see how high of a level the engine can take. And after reading through the comments, we became curious to find out, well, we worked out the maximum oil level, but what about the minimum of oil required to be inside the engine for it to operate as it should? And besides that, we'd like to try to angle the engine. I mean, you do drive uphill, sometimes you're driving downhill, and you take turns, and the oil is going to move away from the pickup. And so let's set up a stand, make us another transparent oil pan, with some proper baffling, then mount the engine on that stand, and from there figure out the bare minimum amount of oil you can use, and what are the maximum angles at which an engine will still be lubricated. What are the maximum angles at which an engine will still be lubricated? Translation and voiceover by BMI Russian. First we connect this chunk of metal to this chunk of metal, then this chunk of metal to this chunk, and then this chunk of metal to this chunk. Or maybe start by connecting this chunk to this chunk. Here we've welded on a shaft. There's a tube sitting in the shaft, and that serves as a bearing. To this I'll be welding a piece of beam. To that I'll weld the hub with the gearbox. That entire assembly. And that's going to allow us to tilt the whole thing this way or the other way. Move it up and down. So check this out. This is the stand that we've set up to conduct all of the testing that we have in mind. And this will allow us to tilt the engine like so, putting cylinder 1 in the air. Also to tilt it the other way. So we're imitating uphill and downhill driving. Here we have some gearbox bell housing to which we'll be bolting the engine itself. Right now the whole thing is level like it would be when fitted to a car. And also we can lean the engine, either left or right. This will allow us to imitate a scenario when the oil is moving away from the pickup during fast cornering. Or say when you're driving down a road that's steeply banked. Now the cool thing is that we can move this in any direction we want, and simultaneously lean and tilt it. We can put this into any position we desire. And so yeah, well, the whole thing is ready. So why don't we go ahead and mount the engine and see what comes out of all of this. Check this out, we got it all assembled. It's all looking really good. Here we have the transparent oil pan, and the stand that allows to move the engine around. And so here's what we've done here, to make the conditions as realistic as possible. The oil pan is transparent, and we've also made a transparent baffle, of the same type you'd usually find inside an engine. It acts as a sort of shield, and prevents the oil from splashing around and such. Now, whatever it may be, I think that there's a good reason that that baffle is there. Like, for example, when the crankshaft is rotating, well, it's doing so fast and it is generating a lot of wind. And that is going to push the oil away. Which, as you might recall, was very apparent when we had the oil level at its very highest in that video. And if you find this interesting, make sure to subscribe, so you don't miss more awesome experiments like this one. Now, I'm not sure whether I'm 100% right on this, but this thing is performing its fair share of duties, apparently. Which is exactly why we fitted it. Okay, so what else? Well, we decided not to fit any sort of oil pressure gauge to the engine, instead opting for just the factory sensor and the factory warning light. I mean, at the end of the day, that's all most of us even have. Nobody ever runs a mechanical manometer every day, right? So the warning light is all we got. And so yeah, let's fill the oil to the max mark and commence the experiment. Let's do this. So look here, we filled the oil up to here, which is something you've seen plenty of times before. That's as much as there would be with the dipstick showing maximum. So it is going right up to where the baffle is that we fabricated. But hey, what matters is where it max. And let's start the engine to see by how much the oil level drops. Yeah, there we go. That's a drop of about 5 millimeters. And we see that the oil, wait. That's quite a bit more than 5 actually. And the level keeps dropping even at such low revs. Give it some more, dude. Don't let it stall. Excellent. Yeah, that is not 5 millimeters. Just look at how the oil level has dropped compared to maximum. Holy cow. Prior to it dripping back into the pan. I'd call that a solid 35 mil. But the oil pickup is submerged in motor oil. This means the warning light would be off, and the oil pressure is where it should be. However, there isn't a whole lot of oil in the pan, despite us filling it to the brim. Okay, so we've got everything dialed in. The engine works great, the oil is at max, and let it rip. Should I start it? Yep. And so now let's imitate a situation where we're going through a fast corner. We're doing some pretty spirited driving, and the motor oil will be flowing away from the pickup in which direction? Which way are you gonna turn? Alright then, lean the engine towards the right. There we go. Even at this angle, how much would that be? 25. So it's at a 25-degree angle, and take a look at that. Yes, the oil has moved towards one side, but the pickup is still submerged in motor oil. So it is sucking it in. The oil warning light is still off. Should we lean it some more? Let's go a bit faster, moving the oil further away. And the carburetor has let us down. There you go. That was caused by the fact that the gasoline in the carburetor moved to one side, prompting the engine to surge and then stall. So to recap, the gasoline moved away from where it should have been, the jets weren't receiving any fuel, and the engine stalled while leaning by 45 degrees. Now here you'll see a red hose, and it is colored red because it is associated with something dangerous. You see, we've actually got a propane tank connected to the fuel pump. This is something we've tried in the past. If you haven't seen that video, check it out. It's where we had a car upside down running on propane. And it was working very well indeed in that one. Anyway, we've already leaned the engine by 45 degrees. And the oil was still getting picked up, there was still pressure inside the system. But let's start it once again. We are looking very good, the engine is running. The oil level is dropped once again. It is circulating inside the engine, obviously, and yeah, let's lean it. Yeah, we can try the same angle. And we are at 45 degrees. And the oil pickup, as you can see, is sticking out. It's no longer fully submerged in the motor oil. But the warning light is still off, meaning we still have oil pressure. And that just tells us that we need to keep this ball rolling. Let's try increasing the angle. Let's get it to about 55 degrees. The warning light just came on. Yep. Swivel it back. Did it go out? Yep. So at 45 degrees, we have sufficient pressure and the light is off, but give it a bit more. How much would that be? I added 5 more degrees and, so at 50 degrees, we experience loss of pressure. Yeah, you can bring it back. So when the engine is leaning sideways at an angle of under 50 degrees, everything's good. You still have pressure at 25, 45, but at 50 the oil moves away, the pickup starts sucking in air, and that's when you start losing pressure. Okay, well now we know what happens when the engine leans to the right, with the oil at the max mark. But now let's try leaning it to the left, to see how far we can push it with the angle. Work out the maximum. Yeah, go ahead and start it. Yeah, that'll do just fine. That would be how much now? 20 and change? Very good. Warning light status. It is not illuminated. The pickup is fully submerged in oil. Lean it some more. Holy cow. How much would that be? 44. 44, excellent. That would be a 44-degree lean to the left. And with a 44-degree left lean, the oil pickup is sticking out by about 25 millimeters. But the warning light isn't flashing, which is a good thing. Meaning we do have some pressure. Let's lean it some more, Sergey. Right up until... What's wrong? What would be the critical angle? Holy cow. Holy cow. That's like 70... Wait. Actually, that's 60. The light is flashing. Let's bring it back up. And so look here. There's barely any meaningful difference. You see, when the engine was leaning right, the warning light came on at 50 degrees, but when leaning the engine to the left, the oil pressure warning light came on at about 55 degrees or thereabouts. But let's call it 55 for good measure. And now I think it's time for us to tilt the engine longitudinally, as in front to back. Let's go ahead and bring this part of the engine up. That'll do just fine. The revs aren't particularly high. And now... Oh my. We're looking good so far. We can tilt it even further, I think. Now that's more like it. That's like a 30-degree incline. Holy cow, dude. And we're looking good. The car is well within operating range. But now I think we should go super steep. Yeah, keep pushing it down. That's 40. Holy cow. That's not even 40, more like 45. Okay, well, the pickup is submerged. We can see the oil dripping down into the pan and drenching it in the process. Even though it's trying to break free, the oil isn't allowing it. You want to tilt it even further? Holy cow. I cannot imagine driving a car at such dramatic angles. You just won't be able to stick to the surface. Or can you imagine the intensity of the braking for the oil to pull in the front of the pan like that? Oh my. A bit more? Yeah, move it a bit further, Sergey. Oh, the muffler is getting in the way. How is it still pumping oil? Because it's still mostly submerged? we tilted the engine forward, resulting in the oil pooling in the front of the pan. And even at an angle of 55 degrees, we were still seeing sufficient oil pressure. But then the oil pickup is placed at a bit of an angle, and even when the engine is at an angle and part of the pickup is sticking out, the oil that's dripping down is somehow finding its way into the pickup. And there is more than enough going through the oil pump. Also, it's sucking in some of which is pooling at the bottom. But let's try tilting it further. Seems a bit imprecise. And that's almost 60 degrees. And the light is flashing. No, not exactly. It looks like about 60 degrees. But now let's simulate a hill climb scenario, with the crank pulley pointing towards the sky. Whoa, no need to storm the incline that aggressively, dude. Press down on it. And we are at about 25 degrees. So far so good. No critical adverse effects to report. Oil pickup still submerged, and let's bring it up some more. And don't be too zealous now. The warning light just came on, bring it down. Is it flashing? Yes, it is. And that's with a 30-degree tilt. The oil pickup is not fully submerged, and the warning light is now flashing at idle. So at a 30-degree tilt, the oil pressure warning light was flashing at idle. And with the revs slightly elevated, it was flashing at around 35 degrees. Okay, well, should we drain some of the oil? Oil halfway between minimum and maximum. Go ahead and tilt it, Sergey. 25 degrees, and we are looking really good. Tilt it some more. The light came on. Oh man, it was supposed to at 45. It is at 45. 45 degrees and we have a light? Yep. Okay, so 45 degrees, write that down. And shut the engine off. And that is with the oil level in the middle. Switch it back on. You are very enthusiastic to move it around. What if we lean it some more? Yeah, it's flashing. How much would that be? How much? Around 52, and it's flashing. 52? I see, great. So look here. We lean the engine to the left, and the warning light came on earlier than it did before. But then obviously that would happen with less oil in the sump. Okay, well, now let's do a descent followed by an uphill drive. Let's fire it up. You are really going for it. Not quite far enough. So far so good. Keep going. And that was 40. And I can see the light flashing. There it goes. Now let's check the angle. We are looking at 40... about 48 degrees. It was 57 last time. Right, How much was that? Too far, bring it back. There we go, 23 degrees, which is way less than it was. So with the oil level in the middle, you drive uphill and see the warning light come on at 23 degrees. Let's write that down. The logical thing to do now would be to drop the oil to minimum level. So we'll drain some of the oil, and with the level at the lowest that is permitted as per factory specifications, we'll work out the terminal angles at which we'll start to lose oil pressure. Okay, remove some oil and observe. Oil at minimum level. There is some oil in the pan, but you can tell that there's way less of it now. That would be 25. I'm going to remember that. 25 degrees, we're doing good. Okay, so now we can see the oil pickup start to emerge from the pool of motor oil. The light is flashing. How many degrees would that be? The light started flashing at 40 degrees. Write that down. And after writing down the result, we lean it to the left. You may fire it up. And here we go. It was 52 degrees last time. 45, we still good? And it begins. 49 degrees, and we have a flashing light. 48, you say? All right, let's call it 48 then. Okay, now we drive downhill. We are observing, yes. And bring it down some more. So far, so good. Right. Oh, holy cow. During this descent, the oil pickup has almost fully emerged. However, because of the feed tube, some oil is making it in. Yeah, I noticed it flashing. Alright, so while we were simulating the descent, yeah, that meter isn't super precise, but it does give you some idea at least. And we just saw a reading of 45 degrees. That's when the light started flashing. Excellent. 45. But now let's see what happens when you drive uphill. And observe to see at what angle we see the warning light come on. Go ahead, fire it up. Whoa, aren't you in a hurry? Yeah, I'd say that's about right. The angle is about the same as it was. 21 degrees. Given the margin of error on this meter, I'd say that's about it. And now things are gonna get interesting. Let's try draining some more oil and see just how low you can drop the oil level and still have a functional engine that has oil pressure. We basically want to find out where the threshold is, beyond which the light would start flashing upon reaching critical oil pressure. We're about to find out. Fire it up. And let's begin extracting it. Already we see a drop in the level, but then, obviously with the oil at the minimum mark, there won't be much of it in the sump, with it circulating around the engine. Open the valve and begin to siphon it out. There is no oil in the pan. It is just empty. You can shut the valve. The warning light is still off, but there is literally nothing inside the oil pan. There is some dripping back down. That's getting picked up by the pump and sent back up. So there is still some oil circulating. Any oil that drips down immediately gets picked up. There is none inside the pan. All of it is circulating inside the system. It gets picked up, sent up, drips down. There's no surplus. But the light is off, meaning we have pressure. So this is how much oil is left. The engine still works, and the warning light doesn't indicate any loss of pressure. It's hard to tell what the level is, but we have a dipstick. And let's have a look. And see where the oil level is at. I can't even reach it. What do you know? So check this out, guys. With this much oil inside the pan, the dipstick can't even reach it. So this is exactly the amount of oil circulating inside the system at any given time. You saw it all for yourselves. And if you enjoy driving in extreme conditions, say off-road or at a racetrack, make sure to check your oil. And that's it for this video. Catch you guys later.